Welcome innovators, futurists, and curious minds across the globe. This is another episode of Innovate Now, your go-to podcast for peeling back the layers of emerging technologies and diving into the future of innovation. Today, we tackle an exceptionally pertinent subject, one that is transforming the course of digital communication and public discourse. As some of you may know, I recently published a book titled Who Decides What's True? Navigating Misinformation and Free Speech in the Social Media Landscape. This book, and indeed our episode today, grapples with the complex terrain of content moderation, the propagation of misinformation, and the preservation of free speech on social media platforms. We are now living in the world of alternative facts, where the quantity of information far outstrips its quality, where clickbait headlines and sensationalist stories are king, and calm, reasoned analysis is often drowned in the cacophony. This constant barrage of content, varying wildly in credibility, makes it increasingly difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff. The rise of deepfakes has created a world where seeing is no longer believing, where video footage can be manipulated to make it seem like anyone said or did anything. Sounds like a dystopian sci-fi movie, doesn't it? Well, thanks to advancements in AI, this disturbing reality is closer than we think. In this shadowy realm of technological trickery, how do we discern the genuine from the forged? How can we trust our own eyes and ears when they can be so easily deceived? These are the unsettling questions that truth seekers must grapple with in the era of deepfakes. And then there's the issue of echo chambers and filter bubbles, those cozy, comforting spaces where we are surrounded by views and opinions that mirror our own. In these environments, our pre-existing beliefs are constantly reinforced, while dissenting voices are conveniently filtered out. While this makes for a more pleasant online experience, it's not exactly conducive to truth-seeking. After all, the truth isn't always comfortable, and it certainly doesn't always conform to our personal biases. Let us begin our journey by dissecting the concept of misinformation and disinformation, two words that are often thrown around when discussing the digital landscape's challenges. They've almost become buzzwords, but what do they truly mean? Misinformation refers to false or inaccurate information, regardless of intent. This could be as innocent as a misremembered fact or a misheard quote passed on in good faith. For instance, someone might share a health tip they genuinely believe is beneficial, but is in fact based on debunked pseudoscience. Disinformation, on the other hand, has a more nefarious edge. It refers to false information that is deliberately and often systematically spread. This is done to deceive or mislead, often for political, financial, or ideological gain. The perpetrators of disinformation might create fake news sites, generate hoaxes, or use manipulated images or deepfakes. The key difference between misinformation and disinformation lies in the intent behind the inaccuracy. With misinformation, the spreader is unaware of the untruth. In contrast, disinformation involves a deliberate intent to mislead. Understanding these definitions is crucial because these twin phenomena are increasingly becoming societal issues of significant concern. They contribute to a polluted information environment where truth becomes obscured, trust in institutions erodes, and societal divisions can be exacerbated. Consider the rampant spread of health misinformation and disinformation about the COVID-19 pandemic. From erroneous beliefs about miracle cures to orchestrated disinformation campaigns undermining public health measures, these false narratives have had real-world implications for public health and safety. The anatomy of misinformation and disinformation is complex. They can originate from various sources, spread through various channels, and influence various audience segments. They can be pushed by state actors seeking to disrupt another country's social fabric, opportunists looking to make a quick buck, or individuals who fervently believe in the untruths they propagate. These falsehoods can spread through social media networks, where algorithms might inadvertently amplify them. They can be aired on traditional media channels, whether wittingly or unwittingly. They can be circulated via private messaging apps, which serve as closed, opaque channels for misinformation and disinformation. And they don't influence everyone uniformly. Some people might be more susceptible due to their pre-existing beliefs, lack of media literacy skills, or the information echo chambers they inhabit. Misinformation and disinformation, despite their differences, have one thing in common: their capacity to distort reality and cloud the truth. To navigate this challenging landscape, A deeper understanding of these concepts and their implications is required. In the chapters that follow, this complex issue will be further unpacked, examined, and dissected. A comprehensive exploration of the anatomy of misinformation and disinformation must delve into the mechanisms of their spread. They are not merely phenomena that occur in a vacuum. They flourish due to a combination of technological, psychological, and sociopolitical factors. The ephemeral nature of online content also contributes to the spread of false information. Misleading posts can rapidly appear and disappear, leaving little time for fact-checkers to respond and making it challenging to track their spread. Psychologically, humans are predisposed to certain biases that make them susceptible to misinformation and disinformation. Confirmation bias, for instance, is the tendency to favor information that confirms one's existing beliefs and dismiss information that contradicts them. This bias can cause people to accept false information that aligns with their views uncritically and reject accurate information that does not. The illusory truth effect is another psychological phenomenon at play. This is the tendency to believe information to be true after repeated exposure, regardless of its actual veracity. In an online environment where the same false narratives can be encountered repeatedly, this effect can facilitate the acceptance of misinformation and disinformation. Sociopolitically, misinformation and disinformation can be exploited as tools of manipulation and control. They can be used to sow discord, fuel polarization, undermine trust in institutions, and interfere with democratic processes. Often the aim is not just to deceive, but to create confusion and doubt about what's true and what's not, leading to a state of information disorder. The corrosive impact of misinformation and disinformation on society is clear, but understanding their anatomy, their definitions, their modes of spread, and the factors contributing to their prevalence is just the first step. To combat these phenomena, we must also understand how to discern fact from fiction in a complex information environment, how platforms can responsibly moderate content without infringing on freedom of speech, and how society can build resilience against these threats. In the coming chapters, we'll delve into these critical issues and more. This exploration, while challenging, is crucial to the health of our information ecosystem and, by extension, our democracies. Let us explore the nuances of content moderation, the legal and ethical implications of regulating speech online, and the innovative solutions being developed to combat misinformation. The crux of content moderation lies in its inherent complexity. Imagine having to monitor billions of posts, comments, and images every day, discerning the real from the fake, the harmless banter from hate speech, the contentious from the dangerous. It's no small task, even more so when considering that content moderation demands a level of contextual understanding and cultural awareness that is often beyond the reach of our current AI systems. And yet, the stakes are high, as the unchecked spread of misinformation can have real and often harmful effects on individuals and society at large. As we dissect this topic further, we encounter a delicate balancing act. On one side, we have the battle against misinformation, and on the other, we have the sanctity of free speech. It's the quintessential paradox of our digital age. How do we prevent the spread of harmful content, and at the same time ensure the preservation of one of the pillars of our democratic societies, the freedom of speech? How do we define what's harmful, what's misleading, or what's controversial, without overstepping the mark and trampling on people's rights to express their views? Existing strategies are a blend of human moderators and AI tools. While they have their merits, they are far from perfect. AI is often unable to decipher nuance or cultural context, and human moderators grapple with the sheer volume of content and the psychological toll of reviewing harmful material. Moreover, these strategies have sparked controversies, raising questions about the role of these platforms as arbiters of truth. So how do we navigate the path forward? One suggestion is greater transparency, allowing users to understand why certain content is flagged or removed. Others propose more user customization, giving individuals control over what they see and don't see. Still others call for independent third-party audits of moderation practices. All of these approaches merit discussion, and we'll explore them in more depth today. Lastly, as we delve into these proposals, we must also anticipate potential legal and regulatory changes. Governments worldwide are starting to question the unchecked power of these social media giants, and we may see significant shifts in the digital landscape as a result. This journey is a complex one, and the path is far from clear. But as we explore these challenges together, we can hope to foster a more informed, open, and respectful digital world. Whether you're a social media user, a tech enthusiast, or someone interested in the broader societal implications of these issues, I encourage you to delve deeper into the topic. And of course, for those interested, my book offers further insights into this landscape. Remember, it is through understanding and dialogue that we can begin to shape the future of our digital world. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to navigating these waters with you. As we progress into the episode, let's now look into the past to understand how we got to this point. The evolution of social media over the past decade has been nothing short of a revolution. It has enabled new forms of communication and reshaped how we interact, learn, and engage with the world. But with this revolutionary shift, we've seen the rise of issues like hate speech, disinformation, and privacy violations, which were largely unforeseen when these platforms first emerged. This is where we really get into the meat of who decides what's true. A key case to discuss is the infamous fake news phenomenon that surged during the 2016 U.S. election. Misinformation spread like wildfire, influencing public opinion and leading to significant questions about the role and responsibility of social media platforms. The most significant fallout was the undermining of trust in democratic processes. The cyber propaganda raised questions about the legitimacy of the election results, left a society more divided, and exposed the vulnerabilities of democratic societies to disinformation campaigns. Across the Atlantic, in the United Kingdom, misinformation played a prominent role in the Brexit referendum of 2016. The infamous Brexit bus, emblazoned with the claim that the UK sends £350 million a week to the EU, which could be spent on the National Health Service instead, became a potent symbol of the disinformation that characterized the campaign. Despite the claim being debunked, the damage was done, with many voters citing it as a key factor influencing their vote to leave the EU. The aftershocks of this event continue to influence British politics and society today. Fast forward to the 2020 US election, where misinformation took a different form. The pre-election period saw an avalanche of disinformation about mail-in voting being rife with fraud. Post-election, false claims of a stolen election proliferated on social media platforms, leading to widespread belief in an election fraud that various court cases, audits, and recounts failed to substantiate. The culmination was the shocking assault on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, a tragic testament to the real-world consequences of online misinformation. But it's not just the US and UK where this phenomenon has been witnessed. Other democracies, such as Brazil, India, and the Philippines, have seen their political landscapes heavily influenced by social media disinformation campaigns. These instances underline a broader global trend where misinformation is employed to manipulate public sentiment, disrupt democratic processes, and enable political gains. They also served as a wake-up call for tech companies and society at large about the urgent need for effective content moderation. However, the implementation of content moderation is a double-edged sword. As much as it is crucial for maintaining online safety, it also opens a Pandora's box of complications. Deciding what is true, misleading, or offensive is subjective and can be influenced by personal beliefs, cultural backgrounds, and political biases. With their global reach, these platforms are moderating content across diverse cultures and societies, which further complicates the task. Next, we look into the lens of regulation. As governments worldwide wrestle with the unchecked power of tech giants, we're witnessing a global debate over the right balance between regulation and freedom. The European Union's Digital Services Act and the ongoing antitrust investigations in the United States could signal a new era in digital governance. These legislations and rulings could redefine the responsibilities of social media platforms, forcing them to be more accountable. The legal landscape surrounding content moderation and free speech is a complex, ever-evolving tapestry, knitted together by centuries-old constitutional principles, court decisions, and more recently, platform policies and legislation drafted for the digital age. At its core, this legal framework attempts to balance the necessity of open dialogue and freedom of speech with the desire to prevent harm and protect societal norms and values. In the United States, the First Amendment to the Constitution, with its guarantees of freedom of speech, forms the bedrock upon which other laws and policies are constructed. The First Amendment, however, was established long before the rise of the Internet and the challenges of the digital age, leaving courts and lawmakers to grapple with how its principles should apply in a modern context. The principal piece of U.S. legislation that currently governs online content moderation is Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. Section 230 provides broad legal immunity to Internet platforms for content posted by third parties, essentially shielding these platforms from being held liable for the vast majority of such content. This law has been instrumental in enabling the growth and evolution of the Internet as we know it, allowing platforms to host and moderate user-generated content without fear of endless legal battles. Data privacy and user rights have taken center stage in recent years, as the commodification of user data by tech companies and the corresponding rise in data breaches have raised alarms among privacy advocates, policymakers, and users themselves. The Internet, in its infinite wisdom and equally infinite folly, has facilitated a data revolution. Each click, each scroll, each like on a social media post, each search engine query, contributes to the enormous pools of data that tech companies collect, analyze, and often monetize. This constant collection and use of personal data have raised significant concerns about user privacy, consent, and control over one's own digital identity. On the one hand, data collection can have benign or even beneficial purposes. It allows for personalized user experiences, targeted advertising that fuels free online services, and invaluable insights for decision-making in a range of sectors, from public health to urban planning. The data-driven nature of today's Internet has undeniably brought about innovations and conveniences that many of us enjoy daily. On the flip side, however, the scale and depth of data collection have sparked fears about surveillance capitalism, the economic system in which personal data is commodified and traded for profit. These fears are not unfounded. Instances of misuse or careless handling of personal data by tech companies have led to scandals that expose millions of users' sensitive information and eroded public trust in these platforms. In this context, the concept of user rights becomes critical. In a digital age where personal data can be collected, analyzed, and monetized, users must be granted the right to know what data is being collected about them, how it's being used, and for what purpose. They should have the right to opt out of data collection, to access and rectify their own data, and to have their data deleted if they so wish. These rights form the cornerstone of data privacy regulations, like the EU's GDPR and the CCPA in the US. Such regulations aim to place power back into the hands of the users and ensure tech companies are transparent and accountable in their data practices. Let us now turn our attention to the future, exploring what the road ahead might look like for content moderation. One approach is through technology itself. Can we refine AI systems to better understand context, nuance, and cultural diversity? In one possible future, we could see an evolved internet culture that inherently repels the spread of misinformation. Just as we've developed social norms for how we behave offline, the digital denizens of this future world might have their own set of digital decorum. In this scenario, individuals are equipped with a robust media literacy skill set, allowing them to discern misinformation with surgical precision. The adage, "think before you share," becomes as common as "think before you speak," making the dissemination of falsehoods less prevalent. Alternatively, technological advancements could bring about a major shift in our digital landscape. For instance, decentralized social media platforms could become mainstream, altering how we approach content moderation. These platforms would distribute power away from a central authority and into the hands of users, potentially enabling them to set their own moderation policies and rules within their digital communities. This could offer a way to mitigate the current tensions between free speech and moderation, but might also open up new complexities, such as creating echo chambers or safe havens for harmful content. As we wrap up, I want to remind everyone that this is not just about technology. It's about our society, our values, and how we want to shape the digital public squares of the future. It's about striving for a balance where freedom of speech and safety coexist. It's about transparency and accountability, and it's a conversation that we all need to be part of. This is a vast and complex topic, And while we've touched on many facets today, there's much more to explore. I invite you to delve deeper into the subject, perhaps starting with my book, Who Decides What's True? Because understanding these challenges is the first step towards addressing them. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. Remember, the digital world is what we make of it, so let's strive to make it a place of truth, respect, and understanding. Till our next rendezvous in the fascinating world of technology and innovation, keep questioning, keep innovating. This is your host, Josh, signing off.